Cars are the most expensive item that we buy that goes down in value, and we generally start buying them at a pretty young age. So figuring out how to buy a car the right way is of the utmost importance to all of our financial futures. Hey everyone, Daniel here, and welcome to Next Level Life, a channel where you can learn all about investing, debt, retirement, and many other financial topics besides, because let's face it, the schools aren't gonna teach it for us. So if any of those topics sound interesting to you, or if you want to learn how to better handle your money and have more financial freedom, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell next to my name so you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. So today I thought I would go through a rule of thumb that I've seen thrown around quite a lot when it comes to buying a car. It's called the 24-10 rule, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about what that rule is, when it should be used, and give my overall thoughts on the rule, as well as talk about some possible alternatives for saving up for a car. Let's get started. So first things first, what is the 24-10 rule? Well, as I said a moment ago, it's a rule of thumb to help you try and figure out just how much you should be spending on a car purchase. It basically goes like this. You must put at least 20% down on your car, similar to how you would with a home, and you must finance the car for no more than 4 years. And you must keep the total monthly vehicle expenses, which includes principal and interest payments, as well as insurance, and some people even include gas, under 10% of your gross income for the month. So let's put some numbers to this. For example, let's say that you had a $60,000 a year household income. This means that your monthly gross income is about $5,000. If you were to follow the 24-10 rule when looking to buy a new car, you would therefore need to keep your total monthly vehicle expenses under $500, which is 10% of your monthly gross income. Now on the one hand, this is nice because it does limit you to a certain extent when buying a new car. It does force you to at least put something down on the loan, and it does shorten the length of the loan, at least in comparison to the average length of a car loan, which is between 5 and 6 years long. This means that your monthly payments on the car are likely going to be a little bit higher than for someone else buying the same car but having a longer loan period. So it makes you a little less likely to buy a car that you can't truly afford because you see exactly what the payments are going to be. Let's take a look at another example. Let's say that John took out a $25,000 car loan and didn't follow the 24-10 rule, meaning that he did not put down 20% on the car, so he has a $25,000 loan that is charging him an interest rate of about 4.4%, which appears to be right about average at the time I'm writing this script, according to Bankrate.com. His loan term is 60 months, and his monthly payment is about $465. If you punch in the numbers, you'll find that he pays nearly $2,900 in interest over the course of that 5-year loan, or a little under $50 a month on average. And that's all fine and good, but what if John had followed the 24-10 rule? His loan would have been for $20,000 because he would have made a $5,000 down payment, and the loan would have lasted 4 years instead of 5. This means that, assuming that the interest rate was the same, he would have a monthly payment of $455. Yeah, you heard me right, it's actually lower than the previous example. And he would only pay $1,850 in interest. But it gets even better. Because he gets out of debt a full year sooner, he may be able to take that 5th year, assuming he doesn't buy a new car of course, and use that 5th year to start saving towards his next car purchase. If he did that for the 5th year, putting $455 a month in the bank, and assuming absolutely no interest whatsoever, he would still manage to have $5,460 in his savings account just waiting for his next car by the end of the year, which is more than enough to make the down payment he made for his current car. So you can see that it makes a decent amount of difference. And I think that using this rule of thumb is certainly better than using no rule at all. And if you find yourself in a situation where you just really don't have a guide to use for figuring out how much you should be spending on your next car, then certainly give this rule a look. However, it doesn't sound like the best rule to be following, in my opinion, most of the time anyway. Let me explain. While it's true that this rule does limit the amount of time you spend in debt with a car loan, it doesn't actually help you to eliminate the need for a car loan in the first place. Stay with me here. Now, if you're in a situation where you absolutely need to get a new car because your old one is basically not running anymore and you don't have much time to plan out your next car purchase because it has to happen very soon, then by all means, use this rule. Again, it's better than using no rule at all. But if you do have a little bit of time in between your next car purchase, then ideally what you would do is adjust your current budget so that you can start saving a little money to buy a decent, short-term, used car with cash. Normally I like to buy cars from friends or family members who I know take very good care of their vehicles, because that way I get a well-maintained car and they make some extra money. I know that not everyone's in a situation where they can do that, so you may have to just go to a used dealer that you trust to get your new car, but think of the difference that this can make. Let's say that you were going to follow the 24-10 rule just like John did in the previous example. We'll even use the same numbers as before, meaning that John currently has $5,000 in the bank ready to make a down payment. But if he were to, instead of making the down payment, use that money to buy a $5,000 used car and thus eliminate the need to have a car payment at all, how much of a difference would that make over the next just 4 years? Because remember, the rule states you can only finance a vehicle for up to 4 years. Just like John's previous example, where he had a 4-year, $20,000 loan charging him 4.4% interest, he would have a monthly payment of $455 a month. And over the course of that loan, he would pay almost $1,850 in interest. However, if he were to go and get the used car and not have to make a car payment, he would be able to save that $450 a month towards his next car purchase. Meaning that every single year that he managed to keep that used car running, he would be able to put away $5,460 towards his next car. Again, assuming no interest whatsoever. If he had enough time to shop around and found, just for example, say a good used Toyota for about $5,000 that had maybe 150,000 miles on it, and he took care of it, he might be able to get it to last 2, 3, maybe even the full 4 years, depending on how well it was taken care of beforehand. And this isn't an ad for Toyota, they're not sponsoring this video, it's just I know that they're generally known to run pretty well for a fairly long time if they're taken care of. But if the used car managed to last for 2 years, that means he would have roughly $11,000 in savings for his next car purchase. If it lasted 3 years, he would have roughly $16,400. And if it lasted the full 4 years, he would have roughly $21,900 sitting in his savings account for his next car purchase. And depending on what kind of car he actually wanted to buy next, that may very well be almost enough to purchase it in cash. And then he'll never have a car payment again. And we already know how much of a difference that can make in your financial life based on my how much is that car payment really costing you video that I already did earlier on this channel. Now obviously there are other variables that can come into play when making a car purchase, such as resale value and maintenance costs on a vehicle. But if you're looking at getting a new car, I'm assuming that you already have maintenance costs for your current car, ask yourself, would the used car immediately have more monthly maintenance costs? I mean, maybe. It depends on what your current costs are and how good a shape the used car you're looking at is in. But even if it is, I doubt it's going to be $400 to $500 a month more in maintenance costs than what you're currently paying. So you may not be able to put away the full $450 or whatever your own numbers come out to be in your situation every single month, but you should be able to get ahead. And I know that some people just don't like buying used. Again, my dad was one of those people. So I do want to say that this isn't a long-term thing, or at least it doesn't have to be if you don't want it to be. Again, if you're putting away roughly $450 a month like in the last example, and the first car lasts you just 2 years, and you take care of it while you have it for those 2 years and you sell it for say $2,000, you've saved roughly $11,000 in your first 2 years of car ownership because you didn't have a car payment. And in addition to that, you make the $2,000 from the sale, meaning that you have nearly $13,000 to spend on your next short-term, used, or maybe even new-ish car, depending on what you're looking at. Or let's say that you put it into something with a little bit more resale value, like say a Toyota Tacoma. Again, they're not sponsoring this video, I'm just using it as an example since the resale value on the Tacomas are generally pretty good if they're taken care of. But you drive that Tacoma for another 2 years and sell it for say something like $8,000, which, let's be honest, is probably being a little bit conservative based on what I'm seeing on AutoTrader as I'm writing this script right now. Meaning that when you add in the $11,000 you again saved in these last 2 years by not having a car payment, you now have nearly $19,000 to spend on your new car. And again, depending on the car you want to buy, that may be about enough to get it in cash, or make a very, very, very significant down payment. But that'll do it for me today. Once again, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell next to my name so that you'll be notified of all my future uploads. I generally upload every single Friday, and if you have a friend that would be interested in this kind of content, be sure to share it with them. Let's really get this information out there and start our own financial revolution.